Hello to you all out there, Grand Rising, Grand Afternoon, Grand Evening. It is I, Jaziel, your holistic health practitioner and shaman. I would like to share on the emotional and mental aspects of holistic health and my recent experience living on a college campus in dorms. I'm not going to show my room, but living on campus in the dorms for a month, just over a month actually. Um, and I also want to share the power that affirmations, boundaries, and a predictable, disciplined schedule gives you mentally and emotionally. Now, what do I mean by mentally and emotionally? Well, in terms of mentally, let's break that down first. So, mentally refers to your line of thoughts, the way that you behave. So, you can think of mentally as behaviorally, you can think of mentally as in cognitive health or cognitive functioning, which is how your brain processes things, right? Or you could simply think of mentally as in the way that you view yourself, that consciousness, that inner thoughts, how they play a part in your decision making and your choices, right? And emotionally refers to, you guessed it, your emotions and your feelings. Now, why is that important, right? In terms of holistic health, we want to make sure we're looking at the mental and emotional sides of our thought processes, right? Of the way that we view the world and the way that we make up our perspective of what's going on around us, right? How do we play a part in our community, right? So, in this example, me living on campus, I have lived here for a month and a week. Now, have I made friends? Have I made acquaintances? Have I rubbed people the wrong way? Have I called people out? Yes, all of the above. And on top of that, I've now formed new mental perspectives, new actions, new neural pathways, right? I've created this sense of safety and stability within living on campus, having a predictable schedule, being consistent with working out, having a place that caters to my dietary restrictions, and, I'm also compromising in terms of the emotional side, right? It's not just all about me and if I'm comfortable or if I like or dislike something, right? It's not me living by myself or living with family, right? It's me actually getting out of my shell, so to speak, getting out of that hermit mode, getting out of that mentality of just working, doing chores, and then going to my room for 8 to 12 hours of the day, right? Accounting for sleep also, right? But it's about that emotional fulfillment that I get as well living on campus, being around people that have different opinions as I have, right? It's also challenging my boundaries. Like, why did I have that boundary before? Was that boundary to protect me, or was that boundary to keep out people in life, right? So I'm confronting myself, confronting my perspectives from the past, confronting where I have been acting out of trauma, like traumatic responses is what I mean by that. Not inflicting trauma, not causing trauma on other people. That's not what I mean, acting out of trauma. I'm just saying, like, from the mental aspect of things and the emotional aspect of things, right? You don't want to continuously do things out of a scarcity mindset or out of a lack mindset or out of a perspective, let's just say, that limits you or doesn't affirm you, right? So if I have a belief let's just start with our beliefs, right? If I have a belief that my opinion does not matter and that I always have to compromise for people to be comfortable, then I'm not going to have a belief system, let's just say, that looks at myself and my actions in a loving way or in a graceful way or in a compassionate way. I'm going to then have a belief system that's tailored around a limiting belief, right? And that limiting belief is going to kind of dictate and move things in my life around so that I'm constantly criticizing my actions, or I'm constantly upset at myself, or I'm constantly worrying or afraid of hurting someone else's feelings or making someone else uncomfortable, right? But if we shifted that belief from, I'm not good enough to I am enough, and whenever I speak on things that I feel are important, other people listen and understand me, right? So that's turning a limiting belief into an empowering belief. And once I act on that belief, enough times, it creates a new neural pathway in my brain that helps my brain function differently, right? So your beliefs and your perspective in life is very important, right? Because, I'm comparing the difference between how I was before on campus to now living on campus for a month, right? That month created a lot of new beliefs, a lot of self-affirming actions, a lot of new relationships, whereas before I would be avoidant and non-confrontational, and I would just cut people off or stop talking to people, and sometimes I wouldn't give an explanation. Sometimes people would stalk my social media and then message me after a certain period of time, or they would only follow me on social media and they didn't message me, and then boom, one day I deleted my TikTok or I stopped, responding on Snapchat, and boom, these people want to confront me and talk to me because they are no longer, able to see my perspective or able to understand my thought process. So I also want to share that because no one should have to guess what you're thinking or how you're going to act or if you really value them if you are operating from a belief system that is mentally balanced and emotionally balanced, or what I like to say, at bay. When your emotions are at bay, you're not acting on them. Your emotions or your feelings aren't consuming you, right? And you've probably heard oftentimes when people act on their emotions, most of the time or majority of the time, it doesn't lead to a positive effect or a positive result at the end of the day, right? So I want to share how, I don't even know if groundbreaking is the word, but it's like, it's so much growth and introspection. And I know I say awareness all the time on this channel, but it really is forming a new layer of affirming myself, of affirming that I can have uncomfortable conversations and not cut the person off completely, right? I can call out one of my family members or one of my parents about the way that they talk to me or the way that they judge me in the way that they talk to me and still have a relationship with them, right? I can set healthy boundaries with my roommates and feel like they're heard and their boundaries are respected, but also I'm heard and my boundaries are respected, right? That compromising, that meeting in the middle, right, is really important when you live, especially, if you live on a college campus like in my shoes, but it's really important to look at the bigger picture as a whole, right? And I also wanted to share that because a lot of people, let's just say, who are constantly online, constantly scrolling social media, doom scrolling as they've coined the term, right? They don't see the communities and their neighbor and the individuals a lot of times, right? When you get on the internet, you're seeing a whole bunch of different content, obviously, right? I'm on the internet. I talk about at least 5 different types of content and my special interests and the things that I like, right? This is my channel, right? But you see a lot of different types of people who are stereotyping by gender, by race, by religion, by even mental capacity, right? Not everyone online or in real life is accommodating and diplomatic or even aware to the degree of their impact of their words, right? Not everyone practices mindfulness. So all the more, right? Another reason for you to really meditate and review the day and think of, the positives and the individual interactions that you had, so that you're also not copying that internet or that online persona or characters that people put on for clout or for attention or for views, right? You want to be authentically yourself. You want to be mentally yourself. You want to be emotionally yourself. You want to be physically yourself. You want to be present as yourself, right? Right. So that is a lot of little topics and little points to why living on a college campus has changed me so much and has allowed me to relax and not worry about other people's opinions or their, projections, or just making a persona from feeling excluded or feeling that wounded inner child, want to come up, or even the ego, right? There's so many different parts of us that we need to sit with and really get to the root of what is behind that thought, what is behind that perspective, what was behind that action that I just did, what mindset was I in just now or yesterday, right? We change and we grow and we evolve naturally, right? Everybody's living their journey at their own pace, learning their own lessons that they need to learn, and just following, their soul's blueprint, as I like to say. And it is also really important to not judge people on their journeys, right? As someone who studied Buddhism, studied Hinduism, studied different types of metaphysical religions and ways of life, and obviously I talk about being a shaman, right? But there are different levels of awareness that we all have, right? We all have our unique talents and gifts, right? But there's a layer to this as well, that some people have already learned the lessons that were harder when they were younger or in the beginning stage of their life. And some people, they learn those really hard lessons, those really tough challenges that they have to break through towards the middle of their life. And some people learn that towards the end of their life before they pass on, to the next place, right? So judging people's emotional intelligence and cognitive functioning doesn't do anything for you. Now, if you are comparing your level of cognitive function to someone else's level of cognitive function and trying to become a better person, right? Trying to find empathy for that person, or trying to become more like that person in the way that they articulate themselves, the way that they handle problems, the way that they just authentically live their life, right? You want to be able to not compare yourself, again, not compare, not judge, but to learn something. If you are comparing in a mindful way, right? I'm not saying comparing your life to theirs. I'm saying, again, if you want to try to have more empathy or compassion for them, you can compare your mindsets, absolutely, and try to put yourself in their shoes, right? Or again, if you are someone who is trying to become more like them, right? If you have a role model, if you have a family member that you look up to, or a friend, or a business partner, you could certainly compare yourself to them in a way that is teaching you to be a better person. And that's the whole point, in my opinion, right, of religion, is to compare yourself to these historical figures and these ascended masters and these beings of great awareness and intelligence, certainly, but also what is the word, of spiritual awareness that they had, right? They understood these historical figures, I'm saying, not just the men that are talked about in religion, but the women, the men, the non-gendered, right? The two-spirit, as shamans say. I'm two-spirit myself. I'm non-binary, if you didn't see that. But something that I love to take away is the perspective of someone who's not acting with a mindset of being gendered, right? So many stereotypes, so many projections, so many absolutes and extremes based off of people who have gendered mindsets or have certain specific experiences with, that group of people. And they look at the entire world through their experience, right? We know this. We can see it online, we can see it in person, we can see it everywhere in our lives, right? If we just take a step back and analyze how much people are lacking empathy and lacking compassion when it comes to certain people's mindsets. Now, I'm not saying to completely excuse behavior or to just brush people off, but to a certain point, it does you no good to go around and around and around with someone who has a negative perspective of you, right? You, at a certain point, just remove yourself from that environment or from that relationship and respect their beliefs and hope that they can respect your beliefs, and you go your separate ways, right? Almost 9 billion people on the planet. I don't know the exact number, but it's more than 8 billion now, closer to 9 billion, I believe. So really being hung up on a relationship or on an argument or on the way that someone treated you doesn't really serve you. And it's not allowing you to be your authentic self, right? And a lot of times, especially, when it comes to looking at holistic health in that perspective of mental and emotional well-being, a lot of people can get caught up in how someone treated them and create a whole persona based on the way that they're treated by others, right? Instead of taking a step back, looking at their surroundings, looking at their environment, not taking things personally, giving people, their own space, their own energy back, not overanalyzing, not staying in the past, and again, not creating a persona around how that person or those few people treated you, right? Think of if you've ever switched fields in a job. Say, I'll take, me for example, but say you were to go from working in a fast food culinary type of job to working in, or like culinary, restaurant industry, that type of thing, right? To switching to a different field of working in a warehouse or in a mail sorting facility or somewhere, that has a completely different set of responsibilities, a completely different set of personalities of people, a completely different set of regulations and uniform and rules, right? You are going to change your mind about how you view work. You're going to change your mind on how you view coworkers. You're going to change your mind on how you view your day-to-day interactions, right? And over time, if you stay, you know, in a certain position or a certain field, you might create a character or again a persona around your environment. So this is why having that mental and emotional balance and that perspective of limiting beliefs, changing them to positive beliefs, right? Because the world is not perfect. Your life is never going to be perfect, right? But we don't want to focus on that. We know there are challenges that that happen all throughout adulthood, right? We know there are things that are going to unground us, right? From the grounding coach perspective. We know that there are things that are going to make us sick from our environment or from the foods that we eat, right? We know that there are things that are going to disturb us mentally or spiritually even, right? But the premise is that you have that mental and emotional balance so that you can turn anything that is limiting into something that is affirming, so that you could change your perspective. And once you change your perspective, you are able to change your mind. And when you change your mind, you're able to have a healthier relationship with your body and with your community. And that is a short, brief explanation from my perspective, and with a few examples, of course, on holistic health in terms of emotional and mental awareness, as well as being balanced. Now, tell me what your thoughts are. Tell me if you relate at all to what I've talked about, or, you can just like the video and watch it and just be fine. But I'd love to hear your feedback. And until next time.